How do you view Mythic Gallywix's overall difficulty in hindsight? The Race to World First found it kind of disappointing from a throughput perspective, but from a mechanical perspective, a lot of the guilds getting there now, the feedback has largely been positive as a fight to progress. I think there's a lot that goes into that. This question, like the theory that like, oh, this boss was only bad in the Race to World First because it just wasn't hard enough. I think there's other bad parts about the boss. Like, I think regardless of it being a race thing, like there's no way you killed this boss in like a world 10th through world 200th guild. I'm just making up numbers. And you didn't feel like the second phase was incomplete. Like the first phase, great. The first intermission, great. But dude, when the boss comes down for the last phase and casts one ability every 15 seconds, there's no guild rank where you're like, that's cool. It's just like the boss forgot to cast half its abilities or something. It's like, that's what I think the most egregious part of it is. I said this after the tier where basically a lot of the viewership still in my stream was a lot of race viewers. And race viewers are like usually a lot of them don't play WoW. They're pretty one-dimensional in the way they're thinking about things. They're just like, if this boss wasn't fun to watch and if it wasn't an epic Race to World First ending, this boss stinks, right? There's nothing more involved with it. And when a boss was supposed to be hard and was easier, they were robbed of their experience, which those opinions are valid. I get it, but like that's a different experience than someone who's playing the boss, right? Now you heard a lot of Race to World First players, myself included. I mean, we literally killed the boss and I like shrugged. But what I said at the time was I bet the average Mythic Raider would rather a boss be closer to Gallywix than Ansurek. I don't know how true that ended up being. I don't know exactly how like all people feel about that, but there's definitely people who dislike bosses just because they're hard, and then there's people who just like want to have a good boss. Or I think I've actually discussed it a lot recently when it comes to mastering a fight. Like the really fun thing about raiding is mastering a fight, and when you don't have good skill parity as a guild, the people who are better in your guild end up hating bosses with long pull counts because they spend an extended amount of time having the boss figured out and just waiting for other people to figure it out. And that's the least fun feeling about raiding. And the more pulls you have, the more that feels worse. Where if you kill a boss in 60 pulls, it's only 10 pulls once you've had the boss mastered and you're waiting for everyone else to kill it, and those 10 pulls don't feel really bad. But when that's 100 pulls, that's like pretty brutal, right? So I think that's a big part of it. I'm actually interested, what is the average prog? Is it progstats.io? Is that the thing that has the like pull counts and stuff? So Chrome King Gallywix, typical progression time 6.6 to 10.3 hours with 1,800 kills. Okay, interesting about this one too is this is like as nerfed as a boss could be. It didn't need to be nerfed a lot initially because it was just built easy mode, right? They did nerf it a little bit, but also you got like turbo boosted gear and like the stuff you got from the 0.5 and 0.7 patch. Like the raid is, and this boss specifically is like pretty low difficulty, but still the typical pull count, it's less, I'm assuming it is, than Muggsy and probably One Arm Bandit. But also for a lot of raiders, after you get through 2 hard bosses like that, one being harder is not being harder is like, for most guilds, is like kind of nice, you know? It's not nothing. You're spending 100 pulls on the boss, but like, would people have rather signed up for 100 pulls after Muggsy and One Arm Bandit, or they want to do 200 or 250? My guess would be more people, late stage cutting edge people, or would rather have the not that much time spent after, especially One Arm Bandit being still one of the strangest bosses in history. As far as like Race to World First pull count versus everyone else, it just makes no sense that it played out the way it did. Such a randomly hard boss. But even then, 74 to 118, this is like slightly less than Denathrius, for example, average pull count. This is slightly less than Sarkareth, which is also considered an easy boss. But I feel like Chrome King Gallywix is like easier than both of those things. And it is both in pull count and I think in reality, but didn't actually end up being that low. Anyways, I don't want to hear their thoughts here. So Taylor, who I don't know exactly which Taylor this is. Did they say the name of the guy they're interviewing here? Oh, Taylor Sanders. Yeah, so this guy's a goat. There's a good chance that if you have any of your favorite raid bosses ever have existed in the last like 6 years or so, this guy made that boss. He is a fight designer who I now believe is a lead, but like, you know, I could go through the names of a lot of them, like, you know, Sludgefist, Halandris, you know, like Payne Smith, Rygalon, like just astro bangers, right? This guy's a goat. He made some others. I think Denathrius as well, but I don't know all of them. But anyway, I've also had some conversations with him, especially around BlizzCon, and I think I've had an interview with him before, and just very, very smart guy. Yeah, Fire 2, yeah, Fire. How do you view Mythic Gallywix's overall difficulty in hindsight? Yeah, so for the Race World First, I think aside, these are generally really dedicated folks, and it's a small group of our players. I think feedback has largely been positive on the difficulty, as you say, with Mythic Gallywix. Mechanically, I think it's a great fight. It's visually spectacular, I think, from a narrative perspective. It's a great fitting in for one of WoW's most iconic and persistent villains across its history. From a difficulty perspective, I think where it's landed for the general community is reasonable. I think where we may have done things differently in hindsight is its difficulty relative to the boss preceding it. Mugsy was very difficult, and it was fairly unprecedented in Modern WoW that the penultimate boss and the final boss were so close together in their difficulty. Well, so close together meaning... It's actually... Wait, so an end boss and a second to last boss being pretty close in difficulty is actually not super uncommon. For example, those two are usually a lot closer than like every other boss. Right? Like, those two are, like, usually a step above everything else. But usually the end boss... I mean, almost always the end boss is harder. Wait, sorry. Scenarios where a second-to-last boss was harder than the end boss? Like, definitively? Can you guys think of any that are, like, super, super obvious besides this year? Stone Legion General, Denathrius? Denathrius is harder than Stone Legion Generals. Cenarius? Oh, well, yeah. So, Emerald Nightmare. Avatar? No, Avatar was very, very, very hard and would have been harder than almost every end boss. Just Kill Jaden happened to be after it, which was definitely harder. The point is, it's really rare / almost never happens, right? Tindral? Tindral and Fireack were really close, but I wouldn't say it's hard. It's hard to say that Tindral was like definitely harder. I mean, if they never nerfed Tindral and you had to do 3-second seeds in the last phase, Tindral would have been the hardest boss ever and it wouldn't have been close. It already is pretty close to one of the hardest bosses ever, but yeah. But the thing is though, okay, I think they're maybe missing this here. From a difficulties perspective, I think it's landed for the general community is reasonable. I think that where we may have done things differently in hindsight is difficulty relative to the boss preceding it. Mugsy was very difficult and it was fairly unprecedented in Modern WoW that the penultimate boss and the final boss were so close together in difficulty. But the thing is Mugsy wasn't like, he says very difficult. Was Mugsy much harder than a second to last boss normally is? I mean, in the race, the answer is no. I'm not sure if that's true for outside of the race, but I feel like Mugsy is like, at least by pull count and what it felt like in difficulty, like pretty much right in line for where a second to last boss is. Like Tindral, absolutely. What was it in the last raid? Silken Court? Silken Court was probably harder than this. For most guilds, at least. I don't know. I feel like... Or maybe people just hated Silken Court more. I don't know if... I think Mugsy is around where it should be for a second to last boss. And then he's saying the reason Mythic Gallywix felt weird is because they were close together in difficulty. But the thing is that Mugsy was about as difficult as the second to last boss is supposed to be, and Gallywix was nowhere near as difficult as an end boss is supposed to be. So I feel like the question has merit, and I don't really think they're answering it here. So we would have liked a little bit bigger of a gap between those two encounters. But Mythic Gallywix, I think ultimately was a great fight for the vast majority of players getting there during Mythic progression, outside of maybe the tippy top echelon of... I mean, that's... first of all, I don't think Gallywix is a great fight. I do think P1 is a great phase. I just think it's so hard to look at the end of that boss. Bro, there are ranged classes that actually stand still for almost 5 minutes to kill that fight. And it's an end boss. You just can't argue that's a great fight, in my opinion. And that's coming from someone who probably had the single most fun of any person or group of people on the boss. Figuring out Gallywix without a dungeon journal was fucking awesome. My experience with that boss should be better than other people because, like, you know, we got to do that. So it's coming from me. You just can't call that a great fight. You know, there's just too much wrong with it. But again, I am the tippy top echelon of our rated community or whatever. I don't think the right words is I think it was a great fight. I just think like, basically, I don't think the vast majority of people outside of what he has referred to the tippy top echelon here, I don't think people hate Gallywix. In fact, I think there's people maybe relieved that it isn't that hard. I think that's fair to say. But I don't think it's fair to say it's a great fight, really, to be honest with you. That's maybe like he's a lead. Like, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but like you're a coworker with people, you want them to feel good about what they did. If they did something, if it was the first time doing it or something, I don't even know who made the boss. But I think they're maybe trying to not be overly critical here, which is fair. Maybe they're different behind closed doors, but don't want to like air them out publicly.